KSCO News Talk time, 10:06. Time now to go to the Saturday special on AM 1080 KSCO.
Josh Stevens.
MZ, Michael Zwerling.
How you be today?
I be pretty good. It's a shame you're not here because you'd have two personal questions for me, provided you had one already.
I have one.
Oh, you do?
May I ask you that personal question?
Fire away.
Do you think China is our friend?
I think that it's a fair weather friend.
You think it's our friend ever?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But not always. I would, like I say, a fair weather friend. A friend when times are good, and then gone when times are not so good.
Okay. Well, I want everyone within the sound of my voice to ponder that question during the next couple hours, because we certainly have an appropriate guest and a super appropriate co-host. So without any further ado, let's count down 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, a brighter day is here. Good morning, may we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today, you know, on KSCO Radio.
Hey, it's the Saturday special time again, folks. Are you all excited, or are you ready to change the dial? I don't know. MZ here. We've been doing this program for, more than 30 years now, actually, because we did it for a couple of years before we owned the radio station. Yeah, stay with us the next couple hours. I think you'll be happy you spent the time. Okay?
Good morning. Now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
Okay, these are very, very strange times, right? I mean, to say the least, that's an understatement. And one of the major threats to our country is China. And not too many of us are talking about it. I mean, I don't think we're talking about it to the extent we're talking about the coronavirus, for example, right? And that's all tied in with China also. Today, we're going to make China and all aspects of China and our quickly changing relationship with China the topic of today's Saturday special. We're going to have two of the best people that we can possibly have on. My friend Amy is with me here at World Headquarters, and she's going to co-host the program with me for the first time. She was born and raised in communist China and spent 10 years of her life, I think it was from age 16 to 26 or something like that. Is that right, Amy?
Yes.
In a communist labor camp. So you were essentially a prisoner for many of your formative years, right?
That's true.
And somehow you were able to escape and come to a country of freedom. I don't want to put any words in your mouth. You should probably interrupt me if I say anything that's not quite right. And you arrived in the United States in what year?
1982.
Okay. And you immediately made a plan for yourself.
That's true.
And what was that plan?
Oh, I just wanted to, for 5 years, I had 5-year plan, and I wanted to go to the college, get a degree, master degree, and then get a job in the financial district,
Of San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah. Then have just pursue my American dream. Then have my own car, my own apartment. So in 5 years, everything all become true. But I had to work at 3 jobs and the school, everything else.
And you worked helping people who were pretty substantial people, I guess. I mean, is that...
Yeah, I was very lucky and found the agency, they were refer me to a company and be a companionship for the old lady. Actually, they was very, the high society ladies in San Francisco.
I see. So you learned an awful lot about the American way of life, and particularly the upper echelon American way of life.
Yeah, those not here, blue blood, high society ladies like
Blue blood, yeah.
That's what they call it. From Mayflower, let's say.
Right, right. Okay, and then you went on to, develop your own business, I think, right?
Yeah, that was later, and I had to work, so I take a much longer time to get my degree, and I had to keep working. I get certified as a public accountant, and then eventually I started investor real estate. So have a own company to invest mostly the government lease commercial properties.
I see. And that continued for, what, almost 3 decades now, right?
Yes,
Is it?
yes.
And you and I became acquainted because we were
Neighbors.
residents in the same building in San Francisco, and I was fascinated to learn that you were, dare I say,
Sure.
a Trump supporter.
That's true. It's not the Trump per se, a person, Basically, I support American system, which was I'm coming for freedom, democracy, those things, and you can have an opportunity to pursue your American dream. So that's what I support. The Trump was representing this.
Yeah, and
That's why I support the Trump.
right. Okay, so I became fascinated by that, but there aren't too many Trump supporters, at least those who are willing to admit it, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And you've convinced me that there are way more than I think they are, because a lot of them are just too afraid. They don't want to get their cars keyed or get punched in the face or get spit on or whatever. But in any case, so you have I would say a sensitive spot, sore spot. Whenever the term, when China comes up, you recall your not very pleasant days of life in China. And you are very, very thankful that you were able to escape to freedom in the United States. And you and I are, I will never have that understanding because I don't have the background that you do. I can only imagine, and the more discussions I have from you, the more I understand how important freedom is to you. We all say, oh, of course, we love freedom. But how many of us have your background for comparison? And I don't think there are very many of us at all.
Yeah, you had to live in another country, and then you appreciate what America is.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Okay. There is a publication called the Epoch Times, and I know those who listen to the Saturday Special are familiar with that, and they're doing a lot of advertising all across the United States now. It's a magazine. It's a newspaper, actually, and media company that was formed in 2000, and by some people who were pretty much like you, Chinese people who were pretty frustrated over the direction of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, that was taking control of everybody and not allowing freedom to grow and endure. Our special guest today has been with us a number of times on the Saturday special before. His name is Nan Su, and he is currently a senior reporter for the Epoch Times, a resident of the Bay Area. He was born and raised in China and came to the U.S. in 1989, which was, 7 years after you did.
That was the Tiananmen Square.
Yes, okay. And Mr. Su has been serving as a news commentator for the SOH International Chinese Radio Network and NTD International TV Network since 2003, has made many speeches at public events and in the past decade on the subject of China and China-related topics. Nan Su currently is a senior reporter at the Epoch Times, published in 35 countries and 23 languages. Besides his media work, Nan has also been an activist for Chinese human rights. He was one of the coordinators of Human Rights Torch Relay in 2008 prior to the Beijing Olympics Games. Starting from Athens, Human Rights Torch Relay spanned from July 2007 to July 2008, with stops at more than 140 cities around the world in order to raise international awareness of China's human rights situation. I gotta say, pardon me, that we've spoken about this before in the end of 2018, less than 2 years ago. I visited China for the first time as part of a delegation of business and government people from the from the Bay Area in the United States. It was the first time I had ever been to China. I thought it was a perfect way to go because we were treated like visiting royalty. And I realized later that we were treated like visiting royalty because we were licking their asses, to be crude about it. Okay? And several months after returning, I was walking through Chinatown in San Francisco, and I came upon an exhibit, that was, I don't know, a half a block long, with very disgusting and gross, awful photographs of dead people, and mutilated people. From and I said, what is this? And no one spoke English, really. They handed me a brochure about Falun Gong, and we've done a program about that. Anyhow, that was the beginning of my metamorphosis from someone who admired China because I had visited China and had witnessed firsthand how amazing it is to be able to get things done here. I'm from a place, we all talk about freedom, and we're definitely more free than the people are in China, where you're not allowed to hear things. Everything is censored. I think we're headed in that direction a lot, especially with the big tech companies, the media and the social media and so forth. But still, we have freedom of speech in this country, particularly on stations like KSCO, of which there aren't too many. So I had been very, very impressed by China, and when I learned about this Falun Gong thing, about people who speak up or who question authority in China, they're killed, and their organs are harvested barbarically. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, and that was the beginning of a transformation of me from someone who admired China to someone who is scared to death about that evil. Not the people, but the people running that country. Sort of like the people who might be running this country soon. Okay. Anyhow, don't get me started. Let's bring in Nan Su. Nan, are you there?
Oh, yes. Thank you for having me, Michael.
Yeah, always great to have you. We would like to have you come on every 2 or 3 months and just bring us up to speed. There's been so much happening regarding China, but it's not talked about in the news very much. By the way, Josh Stevens, I need some help. I need for you to lock Nan Su in. For some reason, I can't lock him in. Maybe you can.
I can. I'm going to put him on fader too.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So,
Hello,
Nan.
Amy. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Nansu. So glad to hear you again. I think last one was February 20.
Was it that
yeah,
long ago? Are
yeah.
you one of these people with a photographic memory like Mary Lou Henner?
So we just started the pandemic, I think. So many months passing by. I think lots of things happening, especially the real important, I think, the landmark events happen. So we really want to hear from you and to talk about those things.
Yes,
Is it
absolutely.
correct that the most momentous thing that has happened regarding our relationship with China has been Mike Pompeo's recent speech at the Nixon Library? Is that right?
Yes, I think in the last few months, Pompeo's speech was a part of it. A lot of things taking place in Congress in the last few months, really because the turning point actually just took place on June 30th. China enacted the new Hong Kong national security law. That's a turning point. I think a lot of Americans did not pay attention, did not realize how important that turning point is. We are living, it's a historical making moment right now in the last few weeks, and you will be continue on in the next few months to see the entire U.S., China, and Western world, the relationship between the Western world and China change in the next few months and maybe years to come because China enact this new Hong Kong national security law.
Do you think that if Obama was president, it would make any difference at all that this law
It
had
would
been
not
enacted?
make any difference at all. Most of people don't realize this new Hong Kong national security law. The full name of it's a mouthful. It's called the Law of the People's Republic of China on Safeguarding National Security in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. That's a full name of the law, which was enacted on June 30th. Basically, that new law is putting more than 7 million people behind a new iron curtain just built by Beijing. And think about how much what it means. It basically symbolizes the biggest failure of the China policy from the Western world ever since George H.W. Bush. For years we have trying to engage China, hoping making China richer, stronger, more middle class, and then China will change. But that, more than 7 million people just all of a sudden losing their freedom, being put behind a new iron curtain wall, and the entire Western world cannot stop it.
Now, why do you think that's happening now instead of in 1997, for example, when the lease expired and Hong Kong went back to China rule?
Well, because basically, think about this. In the early 1990s, the former Soviet Union and the former communist countries collapsed, right? And then the entire Western world, we are in such a fantasy thinking, because China was our co-war ally, and then if we try to engage them, we try to make the middle class grow in China. When they have more middle class, they will want to change China from within. Will China become more democratic? Chinese people will have more freedom. So we have these rosy pictures, but that's why the whole thing starting, and one of the major turning point is 2001. China joined WTO. Our Congress on the Clinton administration, and that passed the bill, allowed China to join WTO in 2020. Just go back to search the Google Clinton.
Did you say 2020? You don't mean 2020, right? You mean
2000. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
2000. Yeah. 2000 that Bill Clinton had a speech at Johns Hopkins University. And just go back to search that speech. It says all. It says all. It says all about what we hope after letting China join WTO. We're hoping what's going to change in China, but none of those political change ever happened. But instead, Americans lost millions and millions and millions of manufactured jobs. There was a Market Watch. There was a study done by Market Watch, says from 1999 to 2010, American lost one third of total manufacturing job, mostly in China, mostly to China, and China indeed has become richer, has become stronger. But, what happened after they become stronger? They are building islands to make in the South China Sea to make a reef to become islands. So they claim the territory. They make the, Air Force base out of those islands, the military planes flying there, and then threaten the countries, around the Pacific Ring. And now they are putting more than 7 million people once in free society. People in Hong Kong once enjoy freedom, a part of the free world. Now they are behind an iron curtain. Think about that. We lost more than 7 million people who once enjoyed freedom. Now, totally under regime, China totally abandoned their promise to the world, the one country with two political systems, which was made back as early as 1984. First to British government and later to the whole world. See, this is it's the biggest failure of the Western world ever since the collapse of former Soviet Union. So that is. It's a huge. It really symbolized all the all our China policy ever since George H.W. Bush failed.
Nancy, I think you probably had to talk about that Pompeo speech in the Nixon Library, the background, because I think a lot of people probably not familiar with this historic event. I think it's almost 50 years ago, right? 1972. So 2022 will be 50 years. So President Nixon's legacy, I think, is he realized this is China is too important to ignore, but now we are helping them open the door for them and helping them economically, and then eventually induce to changing their political system. But 50 years almost passed by. So instead of induce to changing them, and they become a more evil empire. And not just that, we're helping them economically. They had the money, so they started to corrupt the whole world and changing other countries' political status, corruptions. I can't believe it. Already coming to our country in lots of fields. So we will see all kind of things, not just espionage, just universities, high schools even. And so all the Chinese influence, which was a bad influence. I traveling around the world a lot at different times, and I just realized entire Asia, a country like Singapore, I used to love a lot because I like their political system and the transparency of the government. But the Chinese money get there and the corrupt. Everything just corruption. Absolute power, absolute corruption. That's why Chinese will spread these diseases, I think, much more than the COVID-19. So I think, Nansu, maybe you should introduce, talk about a little bit of background, this meeting, the conference in the important conference, a speech in the Nixon Library. I think there's lots of substance there.
Yes, Amy, thank you for a focus on that. Now, basically, Mr. Pompeo, our Secretary of State, made a speech last week in Nixon Library. The most prominent point that he made was when we talk about the relationship with China, we need to separate the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, from Chinese people. They are not the same. The Chinese people are the freedom-loving people. Chinese people with 5,000 years of traditional culture, they don't believe any of communist. All the traditional Chinese culture, Confucianism, it's all in the opposite way of communism. Communism is entirely against humanity, while the traditional Chinese culture is all about humanity. So basically, the failure of our China policy in the past was really to put the Chinese government and Chinese people as the one thing. We think about them as one thing. But moving forward from this point, we are going to separate the Chinese Communist Party from Chinese people. We don't think they are the same. You look at Hong Kong, you can see a real clear picture. The people in Hong Kong, they're Chinese people. They fight tirelessly for freedom, but it's the regime that's really trying to take them back from the free world and put them behind this new Iron Curtain wall.
Okay, let's talk about the main points. It was an electric speech that Pompeo made, and it got some press, but not nearly the amount that I believe it deserves. He basically said that the steps forward in the China-American and world relationship that was brought on by Nixon's visit to China in 1972 have been a failure. Did I say that right, Non?
Well, there are two things we need to actually separate. Our policy from Nixon to Reagan, I think this is more of we build an ally relationship with China. I don't think that was wrong. It was for the Cold War against the Soviet Union. But I think it's this later, after the collapse of Soviet Union, that we're trying to engage China, we're trying to empower China, and that policy, I think, it's a total failure. I mean, before
we built them at our expense. Yes.
Excuse me.
We built China at United States expense. Yes.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah, the globalization. So they use that and to make a lot of money for the last 30 years.
Wow. And people who warn of the dangers of globalism are tarred and feathered, including and especially our president. They're called racist. They're called bad people themselves.
Yeah, until 2016, before the election, even 2015 or something, finally somebody talked about that, which was Trump.
Yeah. Because, either Clinton...
the current administration and the Congress, they are really making this right. our President Trump called President of Taiwan. At that time, he was a president-elect. He was not even in White House yet. And he called Taiwan's president before he even went to White House, swore in. I think that was a huge change even before Trump took his presidency.
There's a pregnant pause here. I want to get into more of what the importance of Pompeo's speech was. That, because you recognize it, Nan. I mean, you and I have talked about it privately off the air.
Yes.
Okay? And that is probably when we said, what are we going to talk about today? We just want to have you on for an update, right? Kevin had you on for a while. And the first thing you said is Pompeo's speech. This is huge, okay? So,
absolutely. It's a turning point of U.S.-China policy.
Okay. I asked Josh Stevens earlier, and I think you were on the line, so you heard it. The personal question, I like to ask him a personal question at the beginning of every Saturday special. I asked him, is China our friend? And did you hear what his answer was?
No, I did not.
Josh, what was your answer?
My answer is that they could be fair weather friends to us. As in, sometimes they'll be our friend, as in when times are good, but when times are bad, no.
Do you agree with Josh Stevens? If I asked you that same question, Nan-Su?
I think that represents a lot of Americans' idea about this U.S.-China relationship.
Yeah.
But I think that's still under the old concept. Under the old concept, we are, treating China as a whole instead of separate the CCP from China, separate the CCP from Chinese people.
Yes.
We need to, the policymaker need to realize our policy really need to separate them. So in order to really secure, our own, security, United States and the Western world.
Well,
yeah, I think Nancy just said that the separation was that the speech said also important point is to separate the Chinese people and the CCP government.
Okay. I've
So
heard that.
your question has to specifically you like Chinese government or
Okay,
CCP or Chinese people. This just.
Okay, Josh.
Yes?
Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
Is the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, our friend? I know it's a stupid question, and I know what your answer is going to be. What is it? But let's go through the
It's going to be a no for me.
Okay, good. So, you know what? Let's just go to the phone. You want to call in and join the conversation? The same number is, as always, 831-479-1080. If you want to participate via email, it's my email address, mz@ksco.com. 10:40 a.m., we're on the air with today's Saturday special discussing China and our rapidly changing relationship with it, our being the United States of America. And our guest is Nan-Su, a senior reporter for the Epoch Times newspaper. And my friend Amy, who knows a lot about a lot of this. So I thought she would be an excellent co-host here. Okay, I see we have Fox. And Fox, welcome to the Saturday special with Amy and Nan and MZ.
Well, hats off to you, MC, for having another amazing show of such gravity on what's going on worldwide. I've been watching the issues with the Three Gorges Dam and the fact that China usually gets a rainy season in July, but it started early in June, and this massive hydroelectric dam that's been controversial since since its inception, has put 500 million Chinese at risk. It's destroying 50% of their food production, and the city of Wuhan is downstream, and it's already flooding, and then there's flooding upstream also. Could they comment on this situation? Because it is just of biblical proportion.
Who wants to go first, Amy or Non? Non.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the Three Gorges Dam was built. They passed. China passed its legislature to build the Three Gorges Dam right after 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. It was considered, one of those things to make a miracle happen. So to switch the intention of the society from the massacre to something new and gorgeous and miracle. It's just like China, the Chinese government, they had a nuclear test, a successful nuclear test, or shoot a satellite to the to the outer space. It's one of those kind of actions. So it was never really considered if it's appropriate to build a big dam. So the big dam, that at the Three Gorges, it's called Three Gorges Dam, is because it's at the end of a huge valley. The Yangtze River just runs through the very long valley. So it's not like a Hoover Dam. Hoover Dam is like you have a big stomach, right? You have a huge stomach, and then at this neck, very bottleneck of the huge stomach, you build a dam. Now, so it's the area that really make the reservoir. But however, the Three Gorges Dam, this concept is totally different. They build a really high dam to use the valley, the mountains on both sides of the valley, to hold the river water. But they did not, do enough scientific investigation because they were in a hurry to shoot, a satellite to make a miracle happen. It's all for political purpose, but however, it turned out that the mountains on both sides of the river, on the upstream of the Three Gorges Dam, it's in an area that the mountain with a lot of it's pretty newly formed with a lot of seismicity going on, a lot of earthquake. So when they really after they build the dam, the water levels start rising, and it caused a lot of earthquake. I'm not sure if people still remember back in 2008, just prior to Olympic game, there was an earthquake in Sichuan. Actually, that was what a lot of scientists believe that's the result. That's a big one, but there was a lot more smaller ones after the dam was built because the water really gets its pressure onto those newly formed mountains on both sides of the Yangtze River. That's one thing, and so that's why the Chinese regime really worry about the safety of the dam. So when the water comes, the flood comes every June or July, this time of the year, they will, let the water go, and then which make huge impact in the downstream. So right now, and then when the water comes, and also the regime it's making decision for its own stability. So in order to protect certain important industrial commercial area, they will go to the countryside, and then they will purposely destroy the levees and dams in those areas. So let those regions be flooded, and then so the water will. So those important regions, commercial, industrial area, in those regions, the dam in those regions will be subject to less water pressure. and reduce the water level in those areas. So it's been happening in China. It's a huge, but outside of China, not many people really are concerned and follow the events going on in China. I'm glad that this caller, this lady, just mentioned this. It's something really huge right now going on in China.
Yeah, Fox, thank you for the kind compliment to KSCO, and thanks for a great question.
Yeah, my hat's off to Epoch Times. I'm a huge fan of their journalistic integrity, shall we say. So,
great.
Good work. Blessings to all. Blessings to all.
You too. Thank you for calling 479-1080. Our next caller is John in Prunedale. Guess you have a question about China media influence, John. Is that right?
Yeah. Hi, Michael. I really enjoy your Saturday morning shows. They're very entertaining. Basically my concern is that over the years we've seen a real consolidation in mass media, especially the networks and so forth. And supposedly 90% of the media is held by 6 different companies or so forth. I'm not 100% sure. But my question for them is, to what extent does China have influence on our media, on what's reported, what's not reported, and so forth?
What a great question. God.
Amy, you want to go first, or?
No, I think probably you know much better in that meeting, but only personal. I feel, like so many newspapers in here I used to read, and Chinese newspaper, there only probably 1 or 2 left. Most of it they bought, everything. So,
That's correct. That's correct. Well, there are 2 areas that we can talk about. One is the Chinese newspaper in the United States. You look at Xintao newspaper. I mean, the Xintao newspaper was purchased by the Chinese regime, and many others was purchased by Chinese regime. And then you Xintao newspaper's CEO, he is one of China's national people's political conference member. It's considered China as a Senate. It's Chinese Senate. China has this fake bicameral system. They have People's Congress, and then they have this national political conference. All the elite belong to that organization. So basically, you can see after China purchased Xintao, you can see there, you just need to compare with how they report China now with before Tiananmen Square massacre in 1999. They totally changed. And also the Chinese. They put their newspaper like a China Daily, which is the English version of People's Daily. People's Daily is China's official mouthpiece newspaper. It's the CCP's mouthpiece. So China Daily, I'm not sure, many of them, if you are close to the government compound here in the United States, if you are close to Washington, you're living in Washington, D.C., you're close to Congress, Chinese government has been sending this newspaper, China Daily, every day to each and every our congressional representative. In many of the state and the county government compound, you see their newspaper over there. It's totally, it's 100% propaganda. And also you look at a lot of Chinese version of New York of newspaper, like even New York Times. You see New York Times, Chinese version of New York Times. You see how they report things related to China. It's a lot of a change in the past 20 years. After we actually try to practice this China policy of engaging China to change China, it's based on this rosy picture about the Chinese communist regime is going to change once they become richer. I think, and the influence from China, that's another part of it. We just mentioned, you see the Confucius Institute, and you see the Chinese consulate that talking to all level of our government officials, the elected officials, because see the Chinese infiltration come as they weaponize the democracy. They try to take advantage of the United States democracy system. They use the freedom of speech to publish their own newspaper. They're like a China Daily. And then there's a regime-owned newspaper like China Press. And then they have CCTV, the Chinese government's mouthpiece, directly broadcast their English and their Chinese program directly in the United States. It's a tremendous work done by them. Give you an example. Just this year, the Census 2020. Census 2020. As the Epoch Times, we really criticize the Chinese government. Now, Census 2020, the Department of Commerce, they have this outreaching program to try to hire media to advertise the Census 2020. Now, most of the media, like Epoch Times, like NTD TV, that's critical of Chinese government, didn't get any of this media outreaching money. But however, the China Press, Xingdao, and even CCTV were on there. Well, CCTV was once on there on the list of Commerce Department outreaching program, and now they later took it off after we reported. And there's several others like Phoenix TV and several others. They are all like directly or indirectly controlled by Chinese regime. It's all being used as a Commerce Department's Census 2020 outreaching program. So it's a tremendous penetration into the free society by the Chinese Communist regime.
One more thing. I think probably a couple of weeks ago, last month or something, they talked about Voice America was changing peoples because they were corrupted by Chinese government. So can you tell us about that?
In the years, I didn't know the specific details of this event a couple weeks ago, but however, in the years, the Congress has been grow more critical about Voice of America after they opened their office in China. Radio Free Asia was more of critical of a Chinese communist regime. As far as I know, that's another program funded by the Congress. It's not a surprise to me to hear that news.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Two more things. I think they're changing the app, the WeChat, and also another one, Douyin, Kika.
Yes,
Yeah.
The Congress.
TikTok.
I don't even know about. I've been reading about that, but I don't know what TikTok.
So we have been to. Tell us about the details about this two app, the story.
Okay. Good. It's a wonderful question. WeChat. I personally use WeChat and then to communicate with some of my friends in China, and because I have been really putting a lot of information out there that criticize Chinese government, give the people living in China a lot of truth.
You're going to get kicked off, nonsense.
Yeah, I've been kicked out several times.
Got a shout out.
Violation or something, they said, yeah.
And they basically their explanation is a technical difficulty or whatever. But once you re-log in everything on your personal account, all the information you posted disappeared. And Douyin is the name of a Chinese version of TikTok. TikTok is a very, very popular program in American teenagers, and statistic of last year show that close to 59% of American teenagers that are actually using TikTok, which is a huge concern about the Chinese influence to our young generations. I actually just interviewed one person who was a content reviewer, formerly working for Weibo. Weibo, it's like a Twitter, all right. It's a Chinese it's a Chinese social media platform similar to Twitter. He was twice recruited by Douyin, or the Chinese version of TikTok, who recently escaped China, and he's now living in California. I just went interview him about what's happening in TikTok. TikTok, because it's facing a lot of concerns from the U.S. society, they're going to censor the information, censor what's being put in that platform. So TikTok say they're going to build a so-called transparency center in Los Angeles, meaning they're going to show the world that they're not going to censor the information in the way they censor the information in China. But however, when I interviewed this former web reviewer, escaped from China, and he said that's totally impossible. That's totally impossible because TikTok, it's really under the direct control of a Chinese regime, and we just saw it happen. We just saw it happen because after the new Hong Kong national security law was enacted on June 30, Chinese government, Hong Kong authority has trying to get some of those information from the social media operating in China, like Facebook, like Google. Now they all, and all these, and like Twitter. So they all make, all these companies, U.S. companies has make public announcement they are going to temporarily stop providing information once they receive the request from Hong Kong authority. But TikTok also operating in Hong Kong. What happened to?
Yeah, we got to cut off the discussion right now because there's only 10 seconds left at the top of the hour.
Slow down just south of Gilroy. Those delays are going to be very minor. Outside the KSCO studio, it's currently 62. We're warming up to the upper 70s today. Overnight temperatures back down to the mid-50s. Clouds will continue to dissipate as we progress throughout the day, but they will be coming back tonight, making for mostly cloudy skies for your Sunday and a high of 74 expected. Time now for Hour 2 of the Saturday Special on AM 1080 KSCO.
Thank you, Josh Stevens. What about Dave Michaels?
Good morning, MZ.
Hey, Dave Michaels. How in the world are you, and how is everything in the Dave Cave?
I am doing fantastic, MZ. Things in the Dave Cave are a little slow. That gives me time to catch up on a few other things. So, since that sale, we sold out on a lot of stuff. So we're waiting for our new shipment, which should be in Monday.
Yes.
But for right now, you can come on down and get a good deal on whatever is in stock. We still have some Arthrodex. I think we have one canister of Tangy Tangerine. We have some Gluco Gel.
Do you know where that came from?
What?
I found the brand new tangy tangerines, one 2.0 and one original,
Right.
in my car.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I said, it's not doing any good in the car. I take the little individual packs, In fact,
Yes.
I'm gonna tear open a Beyond Osteo FX and put it in a plastic container, a plastic bottle.
Now, do you mix your tangy tangerine and your Osteo FX, MZ?
I should, but I don't always have them together for some silly reason. I'm just not that organized. But that would be a great way to do it because I've done it. I learned that from Doc Wallach himself. That's what he does. He takes what is it? A half a liter bottle of water, and puts a serving of Beyond Osteo FX and a serving of Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0, and shakes the hell out of it, and it makes a really velvety, smooth, delicious tasting, incredibly good for you drink.
Right. Yeah. It tastes kind of like an orange Julius, or I always like to say it tastes like a 50-50 bar, like an ice cream 50-50 bar.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Dave Michaels.
Tastes fantastic.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing a commercial for the BTT and actually, for all of these. You're doing it too. You're sort of setting a good example for me.
Right.
These really are amazing products.
They are amazing products. And let me just say that Tangy Tangerine, let me talk about that for just a minute here before I head out to the Dave Cave. Tangy Tangerine, most people know, comes in a 1 pound tub. It's a 1 month supply. You can either get the Tangy Tangerine 2.0 or the original. The 2.0 has a slightly different flavor. It also has a higher ORAC score and probiotics and prebiotics. The 2.0 is a slightly better product, but it also has a different taste. So if you like things that are less sweet, then you want to go with the Tangy Tangerine original. Now, they're also available in packets like you, as you enjoy, MZ, and so do I. They come in individual packets. Both kinds do, both the original and 2.0 come in packets. And it's also available in tablets. So if you don't like the taste, you can get them in tablets. 2.0 is available in the canister, in the packets, and in tablets. The Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the best single product that we have. You can get it in.
Can you hear me shaking the hell out of it?
Yes. That is good stuff, MZ. That's very. Are you okay?
Yeah. No, it's fine. And it tastes really good. Just the Beyond Osteo FX by itself. But then when you add the BTT 2.0 to it, it's different. I like your characterization, your description of like a 50-50 bar, and I didn't think you were even old enough to remember 50-50 bars.
Are you kidding me, MZ? Holy cow, that's like the best thing. Don't tell me they don't exist anymore.
Well, I haven't seen them. Have you?
No, I haven't. All right, MZ.
Anyhow, I'm shaking the hell out.
I'm heading back out to the Dave Cave. And again, Tangy Tangerine has 87 of the 90 essential nutrients. That's a big part. 87 of the 90 essential nutrients.
What three is it missing?
It's only missing the EFAs, the omega-3, 6, and 9. That's the only thing that you would need to add to get the Mighty 90. If you hear Dr. Wallach talk about the Mighty 90 and that's what you want, then you want the Tangy Tangerine, either kind, and the fish oils. That's it. Tangy Tangerine and EFAs.
This is a question probably for Doc Wallach, but you know enough. You have enough product knowledge, Dave Michaels, to answer the question yourself. What is the reason for all 90 not being in one product?
Because the fish oils have to be encapsulated and they have to be oxygen-free. So even if you were to add them to the Tangy Tangerine, it would turn into just a big, giant mess. But they would also oxidize and turn rancid, which would be harmful to your body. So, all the EFAs at the Longevity product are packaged and encapsulated in a oxygen-free room, so they never touch oxygen. They never touch oxygen. That's the reason why they're not included.
See, we'll pretend that you're the new Dr. Wallach.
All right, MC. Well, I'll be out in the Dave Cave until 2, MZ.
Thanks, Dave Michaels. Okay, hey, here we are. It's 11:11. 11:11. Okay, hour number 2 opening. Are you ready?
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back.
Okay. And we're going to use that inside track during the next hour. We hope you will stay with us. If not, we'll be depressed.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
Let's reintroduce my co-host, Amy, and our guest, Nan Sue.
Oh, hi, Michael. Hey, Amy.
Hi, Nansu. I forgot to ask you one more question about the Hong Kong. So since they're changing the law, and is the American citizen go to Hong Kong not need a visa?
I don't think there's that much change take place yet. Do you want me? We haven't finished the TikTok before the break. So do you want me to continue?
Yes.
Yes, Google, Facebook, Twitter all make public announcement that they temporarily stop to process the request from Hong Kong authority, request the information about their database. Now, what TikTok did was they just make a public announcement they are off Hong Kong market. So they took their apps off the Hong Kong market. Why is that? Because they are going to let their Chinese version Douyin take over that market now. So basically they are in line with the Chinese regime's effort to treat Hong Kong not as a part of a free world anymore, but as a part of the inland China. So that's the Chinese version of TikTok, Douyin. It's it's being used in the inland China. The censorship level is much higher. So what Chinese government has this so-called United Front project. Mm-hmm. They are very careful on what they do when they weaponize our democracy system to take advantage of that system. They are really careful about each platform they invested in the Western world. So they basically position each of them differently in order to keep those platforms survived, because they know one day the Western world is going to wake up about what they are doing. So they carefully put different rules on Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok, and TikTok. But eventually they both under the tight control of the Chinese Communist Party. So and we need to really worry about what kind of influence the TikTok is going to put to the teenagers of our next generations here in the United States.
Last hour, Nan, I received an email from KSCO Margaret that says, can USA absorb 7 million Hong Kong refugees? Would USA absorb 7 million Hong Kong refugees? Hope so. Peace, not war. What do you think of that? These are people who want peace, and they're upset that they want freedom, and they're upset that they're losing it.
Well, I think that's crucial. Well, first of all, I will say the England or British government already say they are going to accept, up to 3 million. And you don't have to worry about 7 million. And number two is that's why it's so important, Mr. Pompeo's speech. We need to support the Chinese people to fight for their freedom. Not like in the olden days when we treat China as a whole. Our Congress, our elected officials are so worried about criticize China. It's like we really in order to take care of our business interests.
Half the country, I hate to say it, but half the country still is scared to criticize China.
That's right.
The Democrats.
Yeah, especially most
really,
of the
really
corporations.
voice out
And
for
the-
our values.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Amy said especially the corporations.
Yeah, big
too.
corporations, and they are really they just want their own profits. So they were.
That is correct.
So the human rights, used to be Americans supported human rights. So this the meeting, they invited the freedom fighter. The Tiananmen Square, those people, and also prior to that, Wang Dan and Wei Jingsheng, and to the Pompeo's speech. So that's what it means. We still continue to support the human rights and not just compromise for the profit.
Yeah, well, those we need to become more active to support the Chinese people fighting for their freedom, not just give some symbolize efforts or lip service, what we call it. So I think we need to be more active on that. I think that the Chinese regime has been really taking advantage from when we treat the Chinese regime the same thing. That Chinese regime is the one that really try to take advantage from us. To give you an example, Amy just talked about our big corporates, Zoom. I mean, it's very popular software, right? Very popular software. That's especially during this pandemic. And then back in June 4th was the anniversary of Tiananmen Square massacre, and Zoom actually shut down some of the meetings organized by the Chinese political dissidents. Zoom was so worried because they have a very high percentage of their workforce actually in China.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important that we actually completely decouple with China. Now, it's not all this business's fault. Think about during the Obama years, during the Bush years, when both presidents visited Beijing, they took a lot of our leaders in our business society going to China, making deals, trying to engage China, trying to help China. It's very difficult for business society to decouple with China once they are in. It's hard to get their supply chain out, which we understand. But I think we need to continually push our business society moving towards that direction, and to have our a lot of business already move out of China to Vietnam, to India, to I don't know, Taiwan. Taiwan is a good place to go. And also, by the way, there was a lot of military exercise in the last few months along the South China, in the area of South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait. And U.S. Navy is really making the effort. We have 2 aircraft carrier in the area. Think about it. You send 2 aircraft carrier to the same region, what it means. I mean, Taiwan, it's in a lot of danger right now, and it is possible there is a war going there. So that's why we really need to, our business society, people so crazy about China, we need to really think about a strategy of moving out.
Okay. I received an email also last hour from a 2 or 3 time award recipient for the best call on KSCO. That would be Andres Martin. It says, from USSR to China to now USA. Dear POB MZ, I think that means poor old beleaguered MZ. China is using all of its influence to make us more like them. The West Coast is bending over for them. From South America up to Canada. Here's a quote worth reading on the air, and that's a quote from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And how we burned in the camps later thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night, to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family. Or if during periods of mass arrests, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, paling with terror at every bang of the downstairs door and at every step on the staircase, but had understood they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, or whatever else was at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterwards. That was from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, The Gulag Archipelago. Thank you, Andres, for sharing. Looks like we have some more callers. Let's take, oh my gosh, Colonel Terry. Hi, Colonel Terry.
It's Colonel Terry.
I know it's Colonel Terry. I said, hi, Colonel Terry.
I did not hear that part. All right, good morning to all of you in the group. The Solzhenitsyn quote, yes, that deserves the gold medal for call-ins and emails to you. You should read it again before the program ends. And the reason is really smart people, well-informed people who respect what I call informed wisdom. And would you agree the Dalai Lama is such a person?
Yes.
Really smart with wisdom?
Yes.
So the Dalai Lama, who, by the way, I've had lunch with, the Dalai Lama urges on this issue of world population issue, political authoritarianism, and especially why people run from authoritarian abusive dictatorship. And he says, look at the full big picture of everything. What are the big causes of the situation? Well, the big causes is the Chinese Communist government is serving its own interests of its bosses, and it's what the Russians called the apparatchiks and the Politburo. Those are the causes of things. He also said, what should these people do in those countries who are captive in them? Well, look at the consequences of what they do. If they just run and leave and come here by the hundreds of thousands or millions, then they're relieving the pressure on the Chinese communist bastards to improve things or to adjust or to be overthrown. What if the founding fathers, as Solzhenitsyn's making reference there to, Jefferson, Adams, Washington, and my ancestor, Dr. Benjamin Rush, a Declaration of Independence signer, what if they had done nothing and just sat and not bothered to be disturbed about the abuses and tyranny of the British Crown? They were, for the most part, wealthy and doing fine. What if they hadn't done anything? The Dalai Lama has said to the third world impoverished in the dictatorships, you must stand up. It is your fate. You must stand up and strike, whether it's in Latin America or Asia or Eastern Europe. You must rebel until you put down, relieve your entire country and nation and neighbors from the oppression of the authoritarian dictatorships. That is what the Hong Kong people should do, and we should help them. I'm curious, would your guest agree with me and the Dalai Lama on this?
Ask him.
Do you agree with me and the Dalai Lama that the fate of the Hong Kong citizens is they must be prepared, in some cases to die, but to rebel? And if they do so, with our assistance as much as we can, balance provided, they will perhaps lead to the overthrow of the entire red communist Chinese damn government. Do you agree it might start in Hong Kong, a revolution throughout China to free it from the oppression of the Chinese communist bosses? Hello?
None.
It's for me to answer?
Yes.
Yes, I think Hong Kong is considered to be the next Normandy for democracy in China. No doubt about it, and that's why Chinese government, Chinese regime, have so much fear about what's going on in China, and that because they worry all the inland Chinese people, 1.4 billion people, is going to look at the Hong Kong protesters as an example to fight for their own freedom. So I think that the Hong Kong protester has done absolutely a great job and fight for their freedom, and we need to give them our support. And I think they. The protesters, they have sent their representative to Washington. They have repeatedly asked, the support from the U.S. government. I think if we, the Western world decouple our economy with Chinese regime, that's the best way that we gave them our support, because you cannot say you are supporting the people in China fighting for their own freedom. At the same time, we pouring billions and billions of dollars of investment to China. So I think that we need to decouple with China. And I think Mr. Pompeo is absolutely right. We need to absolutely differentiate the Chinese people from Chinese regime. We need to separate them.
Yeah, he's working for a president, though, who won't do that, unfortunately, strongly enough.
So I think we have to keep in mind our president. It's just only 3 years ago he is still considered a political rookie, right? He's learning. He's learning very fast. If you look at it past the 3 years, let's keep in mind that before Trump even went to White House, he already made the phone call as a president-elect to Taiwan's president. That was never done before for any former presidents. Never done that. Number two, we can watch his learning curve taking place. At the beginning of his term, he said, well, we are going to let China help us resolve the North Korea nuclear stuff, right? So that's why he came out. He said, well, we cannot at the same time asking China take care of nuclear weapon stuff for us, and at the same time we punish them for the trade deficits. That's what he said in the early times. But he learned very quick, and then the next thing, at that time, that's the time he invited China's president to his mansion in Florida, right? And then he learned, China's president did not keep his own words. So that he changed quickly. He went to the trade war with China, and then he learned quickly. China doesn't even keep their own words after they sign their trade agreement. Then he start punish them, and then now after the pandemic. At the beginning, President Trump still believed the words from WHO, which is a little puppy of the Chinese regime. Now that he changed quickly, now he said he doesn't even care about the trade deal anymore. So we see a learning curve from President Trump, but he learned a lot faster than his predecessors, all the former presidents. It took them 8 years. They don't even learn, but Trump learned a lot quicker. That's what I'm trying to say.
I want to get back to my first point. Really smart people look at things with informed wisdom. And informed wisdom, as you've said, we must be tougher on the Red Chinese Communist government, and we must absolutely declare freedom for Hong Kong. That should be our policy. Freedom for Hong Kong and China would separate our economic independence from them. That's our little sacrifice. That's not hard.
Colonel Terry.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. Colonel Terry, thank you for your question. My opinion only is I think this battle with Hong Kong, actually we lost at this moment. But they're still going on. But I'm talking about, Hong Kong already become a China. That was But that's for China, they lost Hong Kong. Actually, financially they lost quite a bit, unbelievable damages, and but they willing to do that for their political system.
Okay,
they never will give up that. They will sacrifice everything, everybody.
Our policy should show far more wisdom for freedom and justice for Hong Kong and all of China. My last point.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct.
Okay, you guys be well.
Now, wait a minute, Colonel Terry, before you go. when are you going to have lunch again with the Dalai Lama? Can I go along?
Well, I'd be glad to invite you, certainly.
Now, listen, we have witnesses now. I don't want you to forget.
Actually, it was dinner at a picnic table in a suburban Washington home I was invited to with 7 other people. And I declined the
it's
invitation.
not like,
No, then they said, it's too bad you can't join us, Terry, because the Dalai Lama will be there. At which point I said, no, I'm not too busy to not come.
Then you undeclined the invitation. So
I had a 90-minute conversation with him at his request across the picnic table.
I have a good friend who is the personal videographer to the Dalai Lama, and I've already asked Gabriel to ask the Dalai Lama if I could get him as a guest on the Saturday special. He wasn't too positive about it, but he said he would try.
Well, we'll certainly do that the next time His Holiness is coming to Santa Cruz, positively.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you very much for your
I
call.
want freedom for Hong Kong, freedom and justice for Hong Kong.
Now, who could argue with that? Mrs. Future?
Hello.
Hi, Mrs. Future. Could you argue with what Colonel Terry just said?
I can't argue because when it comes to current events and politics and power struggles among free people and oppressed people, I don't feel like I have much expertise, and I have.
Sure, into the phone because we're sort of fading away. I don't know why. Yeah.
Okay. So, what I called to say is that if we fast forward 100 years, we know that this planet is going to be full of people who live in China, people who live in America, people who live all over the world, wherever they are, and we will be living peacefully. And between now and then, we are going through a huge transition, and I'm a big fan of Catherine Austin Fitts, who says that what's really going on in all of this turmoil is we're going from a planet that is a unipolar economy planet led by the economy of the West, i.e. the U.S., with U.S. dollars in the international arena, and we are switching to a multipolar economy where that leadership has to be shared among regional economies that have some parity with each other. So we're going away from a world which is looking to an empire model with one leader, and we're going toward a world that is looking to a shared power model. And China is full of many diverse models of power, including Communist Party oppression in the old school totalitarian dictator model. Don't be honest, don't keep your promises, oppress your people. But freedom is something that goes from the local level to the people who are in power. And I'm curious, how do we get from here to there, that peaceful planet in 100 years with the least oppression and the least violence and the least suffering between now and then? And thank you so much for such a great show, everybody.
Oh, thank you, son. Well, I'll bet Nansu and Amy have an answer to that question.
Amy, you want to go first?
No, you. Actually, I want you to talk about something else. You lay down. You can go ahead and answer, because something else I think we should inform.
But what about what Son said?
Right. I think that's a great question. How do we get there to get more diversity? But I think we need to just put the economy aside, and then we look at on the fundamental cultures. And I think our founding father here in the United States started a very a brilliant path for not just for the United States, but for the entire world, for all humanity, all race. It's called inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So I think that until we get every part of the world to pay their full respect to the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, we won't be able to actually settle down and sit down to have all part of the world leaders to talk about how to diversify the economy. I think that's a question after every part of the world actually pay respect to these fundamental values established by our founding father. We can talk about it later. And I think it will happen when people all around the world all pay respect to these values. Then it will happen. And when we see the things happening in Hong Kong, let me just try to connect the question about Dalai Lama and Hong Kong. See, the new national security law in Hong Kong, it talk about the Chinese government will persecute people who will conduct crimes of secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign force. Think about what do they mean by all these very big conceptual names of crimes. This kind of law has been enacted in China for years. They don't give much details about what kind of behavior will be considered as crimes of all these under all these conceptual names, which gave the authorities a lot of rooms to interpret your behavior as crimes of secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign force. Dalai Lama is a typical example considered by Chinese government as a secession. And you talk about the people, the Muslims in Xinjiang area, Chinese government, persecute them because they want their religious freedom, but Chinese government say, hey, that's a terrorism. And Hong Kong's people, that's considered subversion and secession, and also being considered like collusion with foreign force, because the Chinese regime has been accusing that the protesters, are supported by the CIA. See, you see all these things happening. You're not going to have that kind of the environment for you to sit down and to work together on the how to diversify the economy. So it's just not going to happen because they live on the entire opposite set of values, against the national security of the U.S. and the security of the free world, the Western world. It's, you just don't have that kind of environment to even talk about the diversified economy in this kind of environment.
So, son, is that disappointing, son? You're still here with us.
No. I'm very sympathetic. I was told a story. The difference between China and the Western world is that in China, the history is based on no social security system and families having 10 children, and every generation knows starvation. And so they have a culture of scarcity where they watch each other, and they always expect chaos from the soldiers who come through during the famine, and that's the history. And in the West, we have a culture where our affluence has made it that we have very few children, and each children is treated like a precious jewel. And so from the abundance, we give our children freedom. And these are very different ideas which people use to cultivate their world and create the future. So I know it's very different there, but we still have to have compassion for how can they get the best of their world together with us getting the best of our world.
I think that whoever you got information from, it's probably, I don't think that was correct information. The reason, in the Western world, the Confucianism was very popular because that was a Chinese tradition, and the core of Confucianism, it's humanity, it's love, and all these traditions has been really destroyed After 1949, Chinese communist regime took over control of China. Now, keep in mind that communist ideology, it's not from Chinese culture, it's not from Chinese tradition, it's an ideology from Germany and first practiced in Russia. It's all in the Western society. It was from the Western society to China. So they are the ones, they destroy the humanity, and they are the ones destroy the true love in China. So therefore create right now this kind of a threat to the Western world, to our values, the lifestyles. So I think, you probably have to do a little more investigation yourself on the China's history and culture. That's why it's so important. We need to separate the Chinese communist regime from Chinese people and Chinese culture and tradition.
Yes, I agree. Totalitarianism everywhere hurts people everywhere.
I 100% agree with Nang about these issues, because I don't believe we had to stay at our principles. I don't believe, China, the CCP government just use freedom of our society and our system and try to defeat us and to become their system. It's already happened. So anyway, I think we had to never compromise on that issues. We had to see exactly what this evil empire. They are about 100 times evil than Soviet Union. That's what I think. And now I want to talk about that. I want to ask Nancy maybe can give us some more information about concern our securities, our country's securities, because recently we have we closed the Houston Chinese consulate and then closed the Chengdu Sichuan American consulate. So it's lots of things going on.
San Francisco isn't
San
too far
Francisco,
behind,
yeah,
right?
because they were sheltering the fugitive, which was visa fraud, and also those people coming here to espionage. So we had to. That's why I want Nan to tell us more about this background, how the embassies.
Yeah, son, thanks for calling and thanks for great questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, and Nan, what do you have for Amy? And we haven't forgotten about you, Hank, in Scotts Valley. We'll be getting to you after I read this amazing email that I got. Go ahead, Nan.
Okay, I think that was definitely the right move to close the Houston Chinese consulate, because they, you probably already read the news. You have not. The quick update is the latest information from the administration was that the Houston actually is a big hub for this making this cyber attack and also sending their spies to these research institutes around the Houston area region, really pursuing the vaccines for COVID-19. So that's why they shut it down. And also, it's not a surprise as the retaliation Chinese regime closed the Chengdu. Chengdu consulate located in Sichuan province. That's the American consulate closest to the Tibet. See, Sichuan is the province that's bordering Tibet. So by shutting down that consulate in Chengdu, the U.S. consulate in Chengdu, they actually make American consulate farther away from Tibet, and also so I think that's we actually expecting that as a retaliation they're going to shut down Chengdu U.S. consulate.
Okay, Vince in Pacific Grove sent an email last hour. Saturday special question. Good morning, MZ. I would like to ask your guest if he could explain Joe Biden and his son's involvement with China in the recent past and what he would foresee for Chinese-American relations and the future of the United States if Joe Biden is elected our next president. Can you tell Vince what he would like to hear from you, your opinion on this?
In the years, I have read reports about Joe Biden's son with John Kerry's son together, doing business with China, a lot of business with China. And so basically they have business interest. We don't know how that's going to play out if Biden is elected. But even Biden is elected, I don't think America is going to turn the tide backwards. I don't think that anyone could turn the tide backwards. The Congress, the administration, Trump administration already said this direction moving forward that nobody can take the tide backwards. But however, there's no doubt the Trump administration has changed the entire direction of our China policy to set the base for the future success for freedom of Chinese people and to protect the national security and national interests of the United States and the security of the Western world.
I want to make sure I understand what you just said. Are you saying that even if Joe Biden is elected president, that there's no way we could go back to the way things were? I think there is a way. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, all due respect, Nan, I don't know one fraction of what you know about China, but I think I know I'm disagreeing with you if I correctly understood what you just said.
It will be. I don't think anybody can turn the tide around to change our policy with China, and
I think they'll do it just because it's not Trump. Anything, whatever Trump wants, they want the opposite. Don't you think? I mean, that's very clear to me.
It's very clear to me.
Even if it hurts our country, even if it kills our country.
First of all, I think Biden didn't have the same policy with Trump. It's John Kerry, Biden, Hillary Clinton, under the former administration, they all had a wrong China policy, absolutely. But right now, I don't think any politician in the United States will be able to turn the tides around.
How I wish you were right, but I don't think you are.
I think they will sneakily. Yeah, will.
What?
During the election, maybe they say that China's da. I'm talking about.
What are you saying?
Democrats.
Okay, what about them?
I say that they were right now in public. They were changing. Biden would talk about saying nothing to do with China or whatever. Remember the previously, but right now his turns a little changing to Chinese policy. American to Chinese policy.
Well,
but I don't think.
I can say is Joe Biden definitely don't have the kind of a track history about correct policy with China, so he doesn't have that track record. But Trump has set the record for the last 3 years, really turn our China policy around and really set the success for the future of our China policy. And, we have to give him that credit. It's absolutely, it was a difficult journey, just like the other callers say, he kind of, think that Trump is not doing that part. But I believe Trump really, he's a really quick learner, and he really, changed very quickly, after took the presidency. Right now, we're really moving towards a great direction with our China policy.
Okay, I don't want to, I promised Hank in Scotts Valley we'd go to him. We're doing that now. Hank, welcome to the Saturday Special. Thank you for waiting.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a two-part question. The first question has to do with what Pompeo said is to the Chinese people. My question is to your guests, will the Chinese people ever hear that message? And the second question is, if they do hear it, what would they want from us to help them to do it?
Great questions. Thank you very, very much. I think, Chinese people may or may not hear directly the words from Mr. Pompeo, but they will see the change of Americans' China policy through our actions. If we really decouple our economy with China, and Chinese people will see if our political leaders keep criticizing China and really, say we are punishing all these Chinese companies, Chinese officials, that's against the Hong Kong Basic Law, against the Chinese people's freedom. So therefore, we're not going to let you to come into the Wall Street to make investment, to collect money from the American investors, and we are going to decouple. Just like the administration recently, they canceled the special trade status of Hong Kong after the Chinese government enacted the new Hong Kong national security law. I think the Chinese people will learn from America's actions what we are doing. And I think Chinese people, will eventually stand out and fight as people in Hong Kong. And they already saw the examples from Hong Kong protesters. As China's economy is going down, if we stop pouring, billions and billions of investment to China, if we move all our high-tech investments in China, which will actually protect our investment, protect the security of the free world, also protect our trade secrets. I mean, I don't see any reason we don't do that if we really, have our business leaders realize how important it is their action to protect the lifestyle of the free world, the culture which was set up by our founding fathers. I think eventually they will do that, and then Chinese people will learn from the actions of Americans realizing that they have to fight for their own freedom. And when they fight for their freedom, just like the Hong Kong protesters, they will have the support from the entire Western world.
Thanks, Hank, for your great questions. We go now to downtown Al. Hey, you're on, Al, with Nan and MZ and Amy.
Yeah, I had a question. What sort of movements are there in the U.S. amongst Chinese American youth, and what's being done to promote that? For example, we've had this Free Tibet thing. You'll see Tibetan prayer flags all over the place, bumper stickers for a long time. And we know this is going to be a multi-generational fight against Chinese communism. Is there anything being done to excite and inform and agitate amongst American youth to where there can be a free China movement? Or is it just amongst, the older people? Because we need to do something to inform this youth and turn them from this this bent towards Marxism that we have in this country, but also to help China.
That's a great question. Amy, you want to go first?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think I try to contact with younger generation, like my niece or nephew or those people, and ask what do they think about that. And actually was kind of disappointed. I think they were influenced by the meeting, which was the meeting was influenced by Chinese government. Yeah. They say that they don't like communists, whatever, but they just talking about, we are global village citizens. We're not just, American citizens, something like that. and they're very idealist. They think we want a peace, we don't want a war, something like that.
Well, that should be a sign right there that there needs to be more outreach to the youth, and to inform them what's happened with the Falun Gong and whatever. And we've seen this with the cowardice of the NBA, the National Basketball Association, where that one official actually had made the announcement about free Hong Kong, and he was shut down and censored, and how they've closed that down because they don't care about human rights. There should be protests and boycotting of the National Basketball Association games. And I'm just wondering, maybe you can continue to answer with this.
I refer those younger generation people to send them link to read the Epoch Times. And they somehow, I was so surprised. And now maybe you were surprised. They said, this is, how can you get this kind of thing? He said, they were linked to some neo-Nazi, the rightist group or whatever, all kind of races or,
Well,
so they don't even want to read it. So I said, well, just please read it, Then you come to the conclusion.
That's because of the left-wing influence in the schools here and the universities that they go to. So you need to counter this. When I'm 62 years old here, and I grew up in a small town called Loma Linda, which had a lot of people who came from all over the world, before California had so much, multicultural sort of things. And a lot of them were people who had escaped from the Eastern Bloc countries, from Russia, from Cuba, from Romania, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. And all those people knew how horrible communism was. And, we were aware of it as children back then. We knew that they were enemies. We knew how dangerous they were, and that we had to fight against it. And something like that needs to be done in this country. And, it has to be comic books, animation, music, anything that's popular amongst the youth to spread this sort of message.
God, I think Al, I wish it wasn't the end of the program. Apologies to Rich and Salinas, and Nan didn't even get to answer your question. That's the end. That's the way it is with radio. Maybe we should turn the Saturday special into a live podcast, so we're not, we're not subject to getting chopped off by the alligator or something like that. And maybe we could do that online. So we're going to work on that. Anyhow, thanks to Nansu, thanks to Amy, thanks to all the callers. Apologies to anybody who didn't get on. That's it for the KSCO Saturday special. See you next week.